Hello everyone. In this video, we shall illustrate the Riemann integral of a bounded real valued function with some examples. In the previous video, we have discussed about the, the Riemann integral. The Riemann integral. So just I'll brief it out. Right. So let f be a bounded real valued function on some closed interval a comma b, right? So next we will consider a partition of the closed interval a comma b. So that is, by a partition of a closed interval a comma b, we mean it is nothing but any finite set of points from a to b in the increasing order, in the natural increasing order. And any partition divides the considered closed interval a comma b into subintervals, right? So if a partition contains n plus 1 points, then the closed interval a comma b is divided into n subintervals. So namely x0 to x1, x1 to x2, so on, xn minus 1 to xn, which is nothing but b. So these are the subintervals, n subintervals of the given closed interval a comma b, right? And any ith closed interval will be of the form xi minus 1 xi, and length of the ith closed interval is given by xi minus 1, which will take as delta xi, which is strictly greater than or equal to 0, as these numbers are arranged in the increasing order. As they are taken in the natural increasing order, xi is greater than or equal to xi minus 1, so the difference will be greater than or equal to 0. And as f is bounded on the closed interval a comma b, it is bounded on this domain. So as it is bounded on this domain, it will be bounded on each of the subintervals. So on each subinterval, f of x is bounded. So f is bounded means the range is bounded. So that means if we consider f on each of the subintervals, it will be bounded. That means the range will be having the minimum and the maximum. So we'll take those as mi and capital Mi. So Mi is the small mi is the infimum of all f of x, as x varies over any ith closed interval xi minus 1 xi, and we'll take capital Mi to be the supremum of all f of x values, as x varies over the interval xi minus 1 xi, right? So next, using these for all i, we define the notions lower Riemann sums and upper Riemann sum. So LPF, lower Riemann sum, is defined to be summation mi into delta xi, I running from 1 to n, and upper Riemann sum is defined to be capital Mi into delta xi, I running from 1 to n. And later on we observe that, so these numbers satisfy the inequality LPF is less than or equal to UPF. LPF is greater than or equal to small m into b minus a, which is less than or equal to capital M into b minus a, where small m and capital M are bounds for f of x on the closed interval a comma b, where so m is the lower bound and capital M is the upper bound for f of x values as x varies over the closed interval a comma b. So that means this is true for any partition P. For a given partition P on the closed interval a comma b, so we define lower Riemann sum and upper Riemann sum which satisfy this inequality, right? Which is true for any partition. Now vary the partition and calculate the supremum of all lower Riemann sums, right? For each partition P, calculate LP of LPF and take the supremum of all such LPFs and define it to be the lower Riemann integral of F over the closed interval a comma b. And after calculating the upper Riemann sum for each of the partition, take the infimum of all those upper Riemann sums and we define it to be the upper Riemann integral of F over the closed interval a comma b. So this is called the lower Riemann integral of F over the closed interval a comma b, and this is called the upper Riemann integral of F over the closed interval a comma b. And if at all the lower Riemann integral of F over the closed interval a comma b is equal to the upper Riemann integral of F over the closed interval a comma b, then we say that F is Riemann integrable. That is, F is Riemann integrable over the closed interval a comma b. So whenever the lower Riemann integral is equal to the upper Riemann integral, we'll say F is a Riemann integrable function. So this is the definition of a Riemann integrable function. Now we shall quote some of the examples to illustrate this Riemann integrability of a function, how Riemann integration works. So first example, consider the function f of x is equal to x square. So defined for all x over the closed interval 0. So basically I have considered a function from closed interval 0, 1 which takes real values defined by f of x is equal to x square. So note that f is clearly bounded on the closed interval 0, 1, because so I'll say f is bounded on this closed interval because as x varies over this domain, so f of x values varies from 0 to 1. You know that, right? So f of x values, so what is f of x? It is x square. As x varies from 0 to 1, x square also varies from 0 to 1 only, right? So f of x lies in between 0 and 1, right? So f is a bounded real valued function. Now we shall see, is it Riemann integrable, or how Riemann integrability works with this real valued function. So to talk about Riemann integrability, first we need some partition of this closed interval 0, 1. So we shall consider some particular partition. So what is a partition of a closed interval? It is a collection of finitely many points from 0 to 1. So I'll consider points 0, 1 by 4, 1 by 2, 3 by 4, 1. So if this is the closed interval 0, 1, so in between 0 and 1, I'll consider the points 1 by 4, 1 by 2, 3 by 4. So these are the numbers. So then P will be a partition. So will be a partition, right? Then P is a partition of the closed interval 0, 1. Now with respect to this partition, we shall calculate the lower Riemann sum and the upper Riemann sum. So this is what we do, right? So we'll consider a partition. With that partition, so any partition will divide the closed interval 0, 1 into some sub-intervals. Here also, so the partition which we have considered is 0, 1 by 4, 1 by 2, 3 by 4, 1. and this partition divides the closed interval 0, 1 into these subintervals. What are the subintervals? 0, 1 by 4, 1 by 4 to 1 by 2, 1 by 2 to 3 by 4, 3 by 4 to 1. So these are the 4 subintervals of the closed interval 0, 1 with respect to the partition P. Now, for each of these subintervals, we'll define infimum and supremum, right? So let mi be the infimum of f of x as x varies over the closed interval xi minus 1 xi, and capital Mi be the supremum of f of x as x varies over the closed interval xi minus 1 xi. So here, according to our taken partition, so x naught is 0, x1. So next point is 1 by 4, x2 is 1 by 2, x3 is 3 by 4, and x naught, x1, x2, x3, x4. So these are the points of the partition. So with respect to this, we have how many subintervals? So the first one is x0 to x1. The subintervals of the closed interval 0, 1 with respect to the partition PR. What are they? x0, x1, x1, x2, x2, x3, and x3, x4. So with respect to each of these closed intervals, I have to calculate capital Mi and small mi. So here I runs for 4 values, 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, we shall calculate. So if I put I is equal to 1, for I is equal to 1, so put I is equal to 1 in this. So x0, x1. So as x varies over x0, x1, you have to calculate m1. So m1 is the infimum of all f of x as x varies from x0 to x1. That is, it is the infimum of all f of x as x varies from 0 to 1 by 4. So as x varies from 0 to 1 by 4, you have to calculate the infimum of f of x values. And what is that? It is infimum of all x square as x varies from 0 to 1 by 4. So what is the infimum of all the squares as x varies from 1 by 0 to 1 by 4? So infimum is nothing but the greatest lower bound, or for these values, the minimum value is 0. The minimum value is 0. So infimum of x square as x varies from 0 to 1 by 4 is 0. So you can see this using the graph also. So the function which we have considered is x square. So consider it from 0 to 1. So you know the curve f of x is equal to x square. So it is like this. It comes like this. So the points which we have considered is 0, 1 by 4, 1 by 2, 3 by 4. So in this range, so we have to calculate the infimum of f of x values. So from 0 to 1 by 4, infimum of these f of x values. So what is the infimum? The minimum value. So the minimum value is 0. So what we have got is 0. So now what capital M1 now? Capital M1. So what is this? It is the supremum of all f of x values as x varies from x0 to x1. That is, it is supremum of all f of x values, x square as x varies from 0 to 1 by 4. So that means in this range, you have to take the supremum of all these f of x values. So supremum means what? It is nothing but the maximum value among all those x square values. So what is the maximum value? It is 1 by 4 whole square, as the function which we have considered is a strictly increasing function. As the function is the increasing function, as the x values increases, the function values also increases. So the maximum value of x in this interval is 1 by 4. So the maximum value of x square will be 1 by 16. So like this, calculate for I is equal to 2, I is equal to 3, like this. So for I is equal to 2, m2. So what is m2? It is the infimum of all f of x as x varies over x1 to x2. That is infimum of all x square as x varies from 1 by 4 to 1 by 2. So in this range, so what is the infimum of f of x? Supremum of f of x. So once again, as I told, as the function f of x is an increasing function, so as the value of x increases from 1 by 4 to 1 by 2, in the same order, the values of x square also increases. So for the minimum value of x, so x square takes the minimum value. And what is that minimum value? It is 1 by 60. So m2, capital M2, it is the supremum of all f of x in this interval. So for the maximum value of x, so x square also takes the maximum value. So m2 will be square of 1 by 4 is, sorry, 1 by 2 is 1 by 4. So like this, for I is equal to 3, you will get m3. So what is the minimum value? It is the minimum value corresponding to the minimum value of x. So it is 1 by 4, and capital M3 is, it is how much? So it is the maximum value in that interval. So the next interval is this. In this interval, the minimum value is corresponding to 1 by 2, which is 1 by 4. So the maximum value is square of 3 by 4, which is 9 by 60. So next comes the last value, M4 and capital M4. So what is it? It is actually the minimum and maximum value of f of x in this range from 3 by 4 to 1. So the minimum value is the value corresponding to 3 by 4, which is 9 by 16, and the maximum value is the value corresponding to 1, which is the maximum, so 1. So I got all the minimum and maximum values. That is, I got all the infimum and supremums for all these closed intervals. Now define lower Riemann sum and upper Riemann sum. Okay, now consider the lower Riemann sum with respect to this partition. So what is it? It is actually the sum of all mi into delta xi. So here how many intervals are there? 4 intervals. So I running from 1 to 4. So what is it? It is m1 into delta x1, m2 into delta x2, plus m3 into delta x3, plus m4 into delta x4. So what is m1? It is the infimum of f of x in this interval. It is 0. Into what is delta x1? It is the length of the interval x0, x1. So observe here, for all these intervals, what is delta xi? It is xi minus xi minus 1. So what is it for the first interval? So what is the first interval? It is 0 to 1 by 4. So difference is 1 by 4. So the second interval is 1 by 4 to 1 by 2. So once again the difference is 1 by 4. So 1 by 4, 1 by 4. So for all the intervals, the length is the same, which is 1 by 4. So I'll use it. So delta x1 is 1 by 4 plus m2. So what is m2? It is actually 1 by 16 into, once again, 1 by 4. m3, it is 9 by, sorry, it is 1 by 4. Into delta x3, once again 1 by 4. So what is m4? It is here only 9 by 16 into 1 by 4. So on simplifying this value, so what we get? So just I'll write the simplified value directly. So you will get the value to be 0.21875. So this is the value which you will get. So now we shall calculate the upper Riemann sum. So what is it? It is the summation capital Mi into delta xi. So I running from 1 to 4 as it is, as there are only 4 subintervals. So what is it? It is capital M1 into delta x1 plus capital M2 into delta x2 plus capital M3 into delta x3 plus capital M4 into delta x4. Now just substitute the values. So the first one, I think it is 1 by 16 into 1 by 4, 1 by 4 into 1 by 4. M3 is 9 by 16 into 1 by 4, and M4 is 1 into 1 by 4. And the final value of this is 0.4687. So this is the upper Riemann sum with respect to the partition. So lower Riemann sum, what we got, it is to be 0.21875. So this is the value of lower Riemann sum and upper Riemann sum with respect to the partition 0, 1 by 4, 1 by 2, 3 by 4, 1. So this is with respect to one single partition, right? So what does the Riemann integral says? So calculate these lower Riemann sums and upper Riemann sums for varying partition. So what all the partitions you can define on the interval 0, 1 with respect to all those partitions, calculate the lower Riemann sum and upper Riemann sum. Then finally take the supremum of all lower Riemann sums and infimum of all upper Riemann sums. That will give you the lower Riemann integral and upper Riemann integral. And if they are equal, ultimately, that will say that the given function is Riemann integrable. But now, so we have calculated these values only for a single partition. So according to a ready data, just I'll give the data. So the partition which we considered here divides the given closed intervals into 4 subintervals, right? So I'll take that as n. So if the given closed interval is divided into 4 subintervals, so the lower Riemann sum which we have got is 0.2187, and the upper Riemann sum which we got is 0.4687. So according to ready data, if you divide the given closed interval 0, 1 into suppose 10 subintervals, then the lower Riemann sum you will get to be 0.3087, and upper Riemann sum to be 0.3587. If we divide the closed interval into suppose 30 subintervals, then the lower Riemann sum is 0.3168 and the upper Riemann sum is 0.3501. And if you divide the given closed interval into 1000 subintervals, in that case, the lower Riemann sum is 0.3283 and the upper Riemann sum is 0.338. So what we observe here, as the number of subintervals increases, the lower Riemann sum is actually increasing, right? The lower Riemann sum is actually increasing, but the upper Riemann sums are decreasing. So as n becomes larger and larger, that means as the subintervals in between 0, 1 increases, the lower Riemann sums goes on increases and the upper Riemann sums goes on decreases. Ultimately, so to define the lower Riemann integral, we'll take supremum of the lower Riemann sums, and to define the upper Riemann integral, we take the infimum of all these upper Riemann sums. That is, we take the maximum value of these lower Riemann sums and we take the minimum value of these upper Riemann sums. That will give you the Riemann integral. But now basically we know that, so here what we are calculating, we are calculating the integral of f of x over the closed interval 0, 1, right? So this is what we are doing here. So Riemann integral actually ultimately gives you the integral of a function over the closed integral, right? So this is somewhat different method. So Riemann integral is a method in which we define many notions called lower Riemann sums, upper Riemann sums, Riemann integral, upper Riemann integral. So using all these concepts, ultimately what you will do, we will evaluate the integral f of x from 0 to 1. And now we have a classical method to integrate this function from 0 to 1. So that is using the indefinite integral. So f of x here, which we have considered, is x square. So from 0 to 1. So we will integrate it. It is a definite integral which has a definite range. So integral of x square is x cubed by 3. And to calculate the definite integral, we apply the upper and lower limits. So it is 1 by 3 minus 0. It is 1 by 3. And as I told in the first video, definite integral of a function in fact gives you the area under the curve. So here, integral of x square from 0 to 1, what actually it gives is, so if I consider the x square function from 0 to 1, then, so this value actually indicates the area under the curve. So the area under the curve x square from 0 to 1 is 1 by 3 units. It is 1 by 3 units, square units. Area means we can calculate it in express in terms of square units. So we got it to be 1 by 3 square units. So this is actually any definite integral means. So definite integral actually gives you the area under the curve. So by classical method, if I calculate the definite integral x square from 0 to 1, it actually gives you the answer 1 by 3, which is approximately 0.33333, and it is a repetitive decimal or recurring decimal we see. So this is the value of the integral. So this is the area of under the curve. Now, so this has to be actually the value of the integral. But now according to the Riemann integral, if you evaluate this integral using Riemann integral, so you can observe here, so as the number of subintervals increases, so you see the lower Riemann sums. You see the lower Riemann sums. They are actually approaching the exact value, that is 0.33333. That means they are gradually increasing and they are approaching to 0.3333. And you can try with some more subintervals. And here also, as the number of subintervals increases, the lower Riemann sums, they gradually decrease and they actually approach to, once again, the same value 0.3333. Ultimately, for a largest value of n, so these two will be equal. These two will be equal. Lower Riemann sum will be 0.333 and upper Riemann sum will be 0.333. So as they are equal, this function will be Riemann integrable. So this situation or this happens when n becomes larger and larger. So as the subintervals becomes larger and larger, ultimately in that point you can see the given function is Riemann integrable. So Riemann integrability is not that easy to observe at instant. So it is a long process. So as n becomes larger and larger, after some plenty of steps, after some indefinite steps, finally you will get the condition. But why for smaller subintervals, if you have a less number of subintervals, the lower Riemann sum is somewhat less value, and as the subintervals increases, the value of the lower Riemann sums is increasing. So what actually we are doing here? So what actually it is happening here, we will explain it using the graph. So basically, so in this example, how we have defined the lower Riemann sum? It is m1 into delta x1, m2 into delta x2 plus m3 into delta x3 plus m4 into delta x4, right? So just I'll consider the graph. So from 0 to 1, from 0 to 1, the function is like this. So this is 0, this is 1. From 0 to 1, so the curve of f of x is equal to x square is like this. Now, using the partition P, we have divided the closed interval 0, 1 into sub-intervals. What are those sub-intervals? 0 to 1 by 4, 1 by 4 to 1 by 2, 1 by 2 to 3 by 4, 3 by 4 to 1. Now, we'll calculate this sum, and the sum will give you the lower Riemann sum, right? So what actually that lower Riemann sum we shall see now. So first in this interval, we have to calculate m1. What is m1? So in this interval, m1 will give you the least value of the function. And in this interval, by the graph itself, you can see it is the least value is 0. And 0 into delta x1. So what is the delta x1? It is actually the length of this interval. So length of this interval into the minimum value. So actually, the first one will give you the answer 0. 0 because the minimum value is 0 and length of the interval is 1 by 4. So the first term is 0. First plus. So the second term. So what is the second term? m2 into delta x2. What is m2? m2 is actually the minimum value in this interval. Minimum value of the function with respect to this interval. So as the function is increasing function, as the values increases, the function values also correspondingly increase. So for the least value of x in this interval, you will get the least value of f of x. So m2 is the least value f of x in this interval, which corresponds to the least value of x. So the least value of x in this interval is 1 by 4. So corresponding to that, you will get the m2. So this is m2. So m2, that is, we got it to be somewhat, I think, 1 by 16, right? Into delta x2. So this into delta x2, that is length of this interval. So what it becomes, it is nothing but length into breadth. So what it will give actually is, so it will give the area of this rectangle. So m2 into delta x2 gives you the area of this interval, because delta x2 is actually the length of this rectangle and m2 is breadth of this rectangle. So into 1 by 4. Okay. Now I'll come to the third term. So what is third term? m3 into delta x3. What is m3? m3 is the minimum value of f of x in the interval 1 by 2 to 3 by 4. As once again the function is an increasing function, the least value of f of x in this interval will be equal corresponding to the least value of x. And in this interval, the least value of x is 1 by 2. So corresponding to that 1 by 2, the least value will be this one. So this will be m3. So this will be m3. So this is m2, this is m3, and this will be m1 actually. And into delta x3 is there. So that is this into, that is length into breadth once again. So what you will get? So you will get the area of this rectangle to be the third term. So actually, what is the third term? M3 was actually 1 by 4, I think. So into 1 by 4 once again. So which is nothing but length of this rectangle. Next, come to the fourth term. So m4 into delta x4. Here m4 is the least value of f of x in this interval, and it corresponds to the least value of x in this interval, which is 3 by 4. So corresponding to that x value, you will get m4. So this is m4 into delta x4. That is this value into this. So length into breadth once again. So the last term will give you the area of this rectangle. So on summing up all these values, so it is, I think, 9 by 16 into 1, sorry, into 1 by 4, right? So M3 was what? M3 was 1 by 4, okay. So correct. So finally, the lower Riemann sum will give you 0.21875. So this actually nothing but the sum of the areas of these rectangles which actually lie below the function curve, below the function curve. So the given partition or the partition which you have taken divides the given closed interval 0, 1 into 4 subintervals, and with respect to these 4 subintervals, we get 4 rectangles which lie below the function curve, below the function curve. So ಎಷ್ಟು subintervals ಸಿಗುತ್ತೋ ಅಷ್ಟು rectangles ನಿಮಗೆ function curve ಕೆಳಗಡೆ ಸಿಗ್ತಾ ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ. So the sum of the areas of all these rectangles is nothing but the value of the lower Riemann sum. So if you remember, actually the integration process is also similar to this. So definite integral, as I explained. So if I want to integrate x square from 0 to 1, this is the x square function from 0 to 1, so it is nothing but the area under the curve. So I have to calculate this area. So what actually we'll do is we divide this space into rectangles and triangles. So to calculate the area under the curve, so what actually we'll do is we divide this area into smaller rectangles and triangles like this. Smaller rectangles and here smaller triangles. So we divide the region into smaller rectangles and smaller triangles, and we sum up the area of all these rectangles and triangles. That will give you the area under the curve. In lower Riemann sum, what we are doing, we are only taking the area of the rectangle and we are leaving back the area of triangle. Hence, in each of the case, the lower Riemann sum is actually less than the actual value. So this was the actual value, but the lower Riemann sum is lesser than the exact value because every time you are taking the area of the rectangles lying below the function curve and we are leaving back these triangles. So to calculate the area under the curve, we have to consider these triangles also, but in case of lower Riemann sum, we are leaving back these rectangles as it is. We are only calculating the area of the rectangles. That will give you the lower Riemann sum. Now, according to this table, as n becomes larger and larger, the value of the lower Riemann sum is increasing. This is because as the n value increases, n is nothing but the number of subintervals. So as the number of subintervals increases, the number of rectangles below the curve increases. So that is, we'll get smaller and smaller rectangles. We will get smaller and smaller rectangles below the function curve, so that the triangles which we neglect, become smaller and smaller. So the value of the Riemann sum increases as the number of subintervals increases. So this is the main reason. As the number of subintervals increases, the rectangles below the function curve increase. So that will decrease the triangle part which we neglect in the case of lower Riemann sum. Hence, as the number of subintervals increase, the number of rectangles below the curve increase. So the lower Riemann sum actually gradually increase and it will actually approach the standard value, standard area. So this is in the case of lower Riemann sum. Now the same we shall observe for the upper Riemann sum. Why the upper Riemann sum is actually larger than the standard value? You can observe here in each of the case, the upper Riemann sum value is always greater than the standard value 0.3333. So why this is, we shall see now. So how we have defined the upper Riemann sum? So consider the upper Riemann sum. Upper Riemann sum. Right. So how we have defined this upper Riemann sum here? It is capital M1 into delta x1, capital M2 into delta x2, capital M3 into delta x3 plus capital M4 into delta x4. Right. So we shall see it graphically. So once again, I'll consider the function curve f of x is equal to x square from 0 to 1. Okay. So using the partition P, we have divided the closed interval 0 into subinterval 0 to 1 by 4, 1 by 2, 3 by 4. So these points divide the closed interval into 4 subintervals. Okay. Now we shall concentrate on the first term. What is capital M1? So according to our definition, capital M1 is the maximum value of the function in the first interval. And once again, as the function is the increasing function, as the values of x increases, the value of the function also increases. So the maximum value of f of x in this interval will be corresponding to the maximum value of x. So what is this interval? It is interval 0 to 1 by 4. So the maximum value of x in this interval is 1 by 4. Corresponding to this 1 by 4, the maximum value of f of x will be, which is 1 by 16. So that is M1. This is capital M1. So M1 into what we are multiplying delta x1, which is nothing but the length of the first interval. So this is length, this is breadth. So what it will give you? It will give you area of this rectangle. So M1 is actually 1 by 16 into the length of the interval is 1 by 4. Next, we shall come to the second term. So what is the second term? It is capital M2 into delta x2. Capital M2 is what? It is the maximum value of f of x in the second interval. It is the value corresponding to the maximum value of x in that. So the second interval is actually 1 by 4 to 1 by 2, in which 1 by 2 is the maximum x value, corresponding to which you will get the maximum function value. So this is capital M2. This is capital M2 into delta x2. So what you will get? You will get the area of this rectangle. So the second term gives you the area of this rectangle. Next we shall come to the third. So third term will nothing but give you M3 into delta x3. M3 is the maximum value of the function in this interval into length. So this is the maximum value into length. So this will give you the area of this interval, this rectangle. So the third term will give you the area of this rectangle. Now finally, if I come to the last term, so the last term M4 into delta x4 is nothing but capital M4 is the maximum value of the function in this interval, which is corresponding to the maximum value of x1 into length. So this will nothing but give you the area of this rectangle. So on summing up, you will get the value to be 0.4687, which is nothing but the upper Riemann sum. So what is upper Riemann sum? So upper Riemann sum is actually nothing but sum of the area of the rectangles which actually exceed the function curve. So this is actually the function curve. So you are taking the sum of the area of these rectangles which actually having a extension triangle part over the curve. So you are actually counting the extra area. So actually what I need integral x square from 0 to 1. It is actually the area under the curve. So this is the curve, means you need area under the curve. But you are in the case of upper Riemann sum, along with the area under the curve, you are calculating the area of triangles which lie above the curve. So these rectangles cross the curve and some part of the rectangle is above the curve, which are in the shape of a triangle. So we are counting these areas also, Hence, in each case, the upper Riemann sum value is always greater than the standard value. The standard value is actually the area under the curve. Every time upper Riemann sum gives you the area of the sum of the rectangles whose some part is above the curve. So every time the upper Riemann sum is greater than the standard value. Now as n becomes larger and larger, once again I come back to that table. So as n becomes larger and larger, we know that the number of subintervals increases. And as the number of subintervals increase, so what happens? So the area, the extra area which we are counting above the curve becomes smaller and smaller. It becomes smaller and smaller. So that will help the values of the upper Riemann sums to approach the standard value. As n becomes larger and larger, the number of rectangles increase, which results in the lesser area of the triangle which lie above the curve. So that makes the upper Riemann sum values goes on decrease, and they actually approach to the exact value. So this is actually what the Riemann integral is. So in the Riemann integral, we consider the notions called lower Riemann sums and upper Riemann sums. Each time lower Riemann sum will give you the sum of the area of the rectangles which lie below the curve, and upper Riemann sum will give you the sum of the area of the rectangles which actually have a part of it above the curve. So these correspondingly, one will increase and one will decrease. Lower Riemann sums will increase and upper Riemann sums will decrease as the number of subintervals increase, and ultimately they approach to the standard value. So this is what the Riemann integral is, right? So this is one example. Now we shall have one more example for a Riemann integrable function, right? Consider f of x is equal to k, which is a constant for all x varying over some closed interval a comma b, right? Where a comma b is a closed interval on the real line R. So here we shall discuss Riemann integrability of a constant function defined on some closed interval a comma b. So I have taken f of x to be equal to k for all x. That means what? F is a constant function. So now we shall see Riemann integrability of a constant function. So basically, so the function which you have considered is a constant function. Suppose this is the closed interval a comma b, then so the function is actually a constant function. For all x values, f of x takes the same value. Say it is k. So this is the function curve. So for such a function, how Riemann integrability works or how it goes, so we shall see. So now to talk about Riemann integrability, first of all, we need a partition of closed interval a comma b. So we shall start. Let p equals x0, x1, x2, so on, xn be a partition of the closed interval a comma b. So This is the closed interval a comma b. So we have considered a partition of it. So x0, x1, x2, so on, xn minus 1, xn. So as we have discussed earlier, so any partition of closed interval will divide that interval into sub-intervals. So one is first is x0 to x1, x1 to x2, x2 to x3, so on like this, xn minus 1 to xn. Right? Now, to talk about the Riemann integrability of this function, first of all, we have to talk about lower Riemann sum and upper Riemann sum. So lower Riemann sum, upper Riemann sum means, so for that we need minimum and maximum value of the function in each of these subintervals. So here, so this is the plane. So in this plane, suppose assume that this is the closed interval a comma b. So we have divided this into subintervals x1 to x2, x2 to x3, so on, xn minus 1 to xn. So as the function is constant, so curve is like this. So at all the points of this closed interval, the function takes the same value. Okay. Now in each of these intervals, you have to calculate the minimum and maximum value, right? So let we define my to be infimum of all f of x values as x varies over the interval xi minus 1 to xi, and capital Mi to be supremum of all f of x as x varies over any interval xi minus 1 xi. Now consider any general interval. So in this interval, in this range, see what is the minimum value of x, f of x, and what is the maximum value of f of x. So that will give you mi and capital Mi. So small mi is the infimum of all f of x values in this. That is the minimum value of all these f of x values, and capital Mi is the maximum values. So in this range, you can observe f of x does not vary at all. It is constant. So the minimum and maximum value is same, which is equal to k. Then you can observe that the minimum value is also k and the maximum value is also k. Because so when a function varies, you can see what is the minimum value, what is the maximum value. In a day, if the temperature varies, you can see what is the minimum temperature and the maximum temperature. If at all the temperature doesn't vary, it is constant throughout the day, then what is the minimum and maximum? It is the constant, right? So here also the same thing. In this interval, in this general interval, the function not at all varies. So the minimum and maximum will be the constant value. So small my will also be k, capital My will also be k, right? So that is the constant value of the function. Now we shall calculate the lower Riemann sum. So what is the lower Riemann sum? It is summation Mi into delta xi, I running from 1 to n. And the upper Riemann sum is summation capital Mi into delta xi. So for all I, Mi is nothing but k only. So substitute k into delta xi, I running from 1 to n. Here also k into delta xi, I running from 1 to n. Okay, so k is constant, you can take it outside the summation. K into summation delta xi, here also k into summation delta xi. So initially we have observed it, summation delta xi will give you nothing but b minus a. So it is k into b minus a, this is also k into b minus a. So this is the value of lower Riemann sum and the upper Riemann sum for any partition P. So here the partition P which we have started with is arbitrary, right? This is not a fixed partition, it is an arbitrary partition. So for any partition P, lower Riemann sum is k into b minus a, where you can observe k is the function value, which is a constant value, and b minus a, which is also constant. So this is also a constant value, this is also a constant value. So there is no variable in the lower Riemann sum and the upper Riemann sum. So whatever the partition P you take, the lower Riemann sum is fixed, which is k into b minus a, and the upper Riemann sum is also same, which is k into b minus a. So what is the lower Riemann integral now? So it is defined to be supremum of all lower Riemann sums. So we define the lower Riemann integral to be the supremum of all lower Riemann sums calculated for all possible partitions. So for all possible partitions, calculate lower Riemann sum and take the supremum of all those values. But in this case, for any partition, so the lower Riemann sum is constant. It is always k into b minus a. So what is the supremum of all those values? It is once again the constant. Now, if I consider the upper Riemann integral, we define it to be infimum of all upper Riemann sums, right? Upper Riemann sums. But for any partition P, once again, the upper Riemann sum is a constant. It never changes. It does not vary. So the infimum of all those constant values is the same. It is B minus C. So this is the lower Riemann integral. This is the upper Riemann integral. And you can observe that the lower Riemann integral is equal to the upper Riemann integral. So thus, that's what I can say. The function, the constant function which you have considered is Riemann integrable. Riemann integrable. So from this example, what we can see is a constant function is always Riemann integrable, right? And also here you have to observe one more point, which is, so if I consider the standard integration, so classical integration. So here consider integral f of x dx from a to b. So what is it? F of x is taken as constant. So from a to b, it is k into integral dx a to b. So integral of dx is x from limits ba. So what is it? It is k into b minus a. So this is the value of the integral using the classical method, and this is the, so as the lower Riemann integral and upper Riemann integral are equal, so the common value is taken as the integral of f from a to b. So which is what? It is k into b minus k. So you can observe here the Riemann integrable. So the value of the Riemann integral of f is same as the integral of f, right? So here in this example, so how lower Riemann sums and how upper Riemann sums are there. So that is, you can observe here. So here actually lower Riemann sums. So as the function is constant, so in each of the intervals, so if you calculate the minimum, it is same. So you will get the rectangles like this. In case of lower Riemann integrals, so lower Riemann integral is what? M1 in small m1 into delta x1 plus small m2 into delta x2, so on. So what is small m1? It is the minimum value of f of x in this interval. As the function is constant, the minimum value is this one. So it is this integral. So this will give you the first term, second term, third term, like this. So lower Riemann sum in this case is nothing but sum of the rectangles below the curve, which actually covers the whole area under the curve, And what is the upper Riemann sum? Upper Riemann sum is capital M1 into delta x1 plus capital M2 into delta x2, like that. So on each subinterval, so what is the maximum value? It is the same constant value. So that value into the width of the interval will give you the same rectangle once again. So once again, you are calculating the area of the rectangles as in case of lower Riemann sum. So all these integrals will be below the function curve once again, and they cover the whole area under the curve. Hence, the lower Riemann sum will be equal to the upper Riemann sum, and they are actually equal to the original area under the curve. So this is how Riemann integrable works. Riemann integration works. Okay. So now we shall note an important thing. A necessary condition for a function to be Riemann integrable is boundedness. So as we discussed the definition of Riemann integrability in the previous video, so where the boundedness of function is necessary. Unless a function is bounded, we cannot talk about its integrability, Riemann integrability. So boundedness is very necessary for a function to be Riemann integrable. So that necessary condition can be quoted like this. If f is Riemann integrable on some closed interval a comma b, then f is bounded on closed interval a comma b. So unless a function is bounded, it is not Riemann integrable. So we can talk about Riemann integrability of a function only whenever it is a bounded function. So only for a bounded function we discuss the Riemann integrability. So boundedness of a function is necessary for a function to be Riemann integrable. But it is not sufficient. That is, the converse of this statement is not true. That means a function is bounded will not directly imply it is Riemann integrable. So boundedness is just a necessary condition. If it is bounded, we can discuss its Riemann integrability, but we cannot conclude that it is always Riemann integrable. So a bounded function need not be Riemann integrable always, right? So boundedness is just a necessary condition, right? So to discuss the Riemann integrability, we need boundedness, but boundedness not directly will imply the function is Riemann integrable. So we observe that the converse is not true. That is, a bounded function need not be Riemann integrable always. So as an example, consider this. So consider f of x to be defined to be 1 whenever x is a rational number, and define it to be 0 if x is a irrational number. So consider this function on some closed interval a comma b on R. Now to verify it is Riemann integrable or not, so we shall start with a partition. Let P be any partition. So this partition divides the closed interval into some subintervals. On each subinterval, calculate the infimum and supremum. Now on any subinterval, so what is mi? It is actually the infimum. That is the smallest minimum value of f of x. So how we have defined f of x? F of x is either 1 or 0, right? So if you consider any subinterval, it consists of some rational numbers and some irrational numbers. At all rational numbers, it is 1, and at all irrational numbers, it is 0. So in a subinterval, the minimum possible f of x value is 0 and the maximum possible f of x value is 1. As it has only two possibilities, the minimum possibility is 0 and the maximum possibility is 1. So in any subinterval, mi is 0, capital Mi is 1, which is the infimum, that is minimum value. This is the supremum. As all small mi's are equal, the lower Riemann sum is equal to 0. So each term reduces to 0, the whole sum reduces to 0. And now the upper Riemann sum, so each mi, capital Mi is 1. So that means all mi's are 1. So you can take it outside, treating it as a constant. So 1 into summation delta xi. So summation delta xi is b minus a, we know that. So the upper Riemann sum takes the value b minus a. So you can observe that lower Riemann sum is 0 and upper Riemann sum is b minus a. Both are constant irrespective of the partition P. So whatever the partition P you choose, the lower Riemann sum and upper Riemann sum remains the same. That is, lower Riemann sum is always 0 and upper Riemann sum is always b minus a. So if you take the supremum of all lower Riemann sums, it is once again 0, which gives you the lower Riemann integral. And on the other hand, so as upper Riemann sum is always b minus a, which is constant, so its infimum will be once again b minus a. So b minus a is where other than 0. So it shows that the lower Riemann integral is other than the upper Riemann integral. So lower Riemann integral is not equal to the upper Riemann integral. So f is not Riemann integrable. So this example illustrates that even if a function is bounded, it need not be Riemann integrable. So boundedness is just a necessary condition for a Riemann integrability, but not a sufficient condition.